No, I've got nothing. I don't know how to start this. Joker Part Deux. Um, boy, like I really didn't know what to expect out of this. I mean, I expected to not like it. Um, the ways in which it doesn't work, because wow, does it not work, are kind of fascinating. So to catch you up real quick, because the first one came out a while ago, um, I didn't super love it. I gave props to Joaquin Phoenix's performance because damn, the man worked his ass off. And I'm not going to say there were no good ideas in it, but I generally came away from that first Joker movie going, okay, what point were you trying to make? Because it felt like it brushed up against about 4 or 5 different points it could have been making and not really fully committing to any of them beyond just the general, now very mocked notion of we live in a society. And I don't know. At the time, I had people tell me, well, that was the point. This is all complicated. Like, no, but you kind of have to pick what it is that you think is your main point, at least. Um, so the odd thing is, while I think the first one is probably a better movie, I think the second one's actually more cohesive and coherent. And what I mean by that is, I know what point, or at least I feel pretty comfortable saying I know what point the second one was trying to make. I'm not sure it was a point worth trying to make. And even if you were going to, I don't think it was a point that was worth making in the way they tried to do it. But I do feel like I have a much firmer grasp on what it was trying to accomplish this time than last time. And part of me has to wonder if the makers, especially Todd Phillips, kind of agreed with my assessment. Not that it was bad. He defended the movie. He thought it was good. But I wonder if he kind of shared my frustration and misdirected that anger. Because what really feels like, and like, it felt like an exaggeration. That I would see reviews saying like, the whole point of this movie is to insult and completely, mock and disenfranchise the fans of the first movie. That felt like an exaggeration. It's only slightly. The main point of this movie does really seem to be this guy is a loser. And if you idolize him, you are either also a loser or unhinged. That really does seem to be the point of this one. And I don't know, Todd, like if you were real frustrated that people didn't get the first movie the way you wanted them to, that people, came away with some form of idolization of the Joker and you thought that they wouldn't do that, it probably would have been a heck of a lot cheaper just to sort that out with therapy. Point out to a therapist, just vent, because maybe a good therapist would have noted to you, Todd, if a huge chunk of your audience misunderstood what it was you were trying to do, that's at least partially your fault. So making a movie that seems to be very much blaming the audience and taking no culpability, I don't know. It feels like a very expensive therapy session for Todd Phillips in specific and maybe some of the other returning creators in general. That being said, I do not understand how it is possible that this thing cost $200 million. And I mean that very legitimately. I can think of other movies where I'm like, boy, the money isn't really up on screen, but I still believe that the money went, to things, or, it was just appropriated badly. Like, I don't know, weird example, but there was a reason that despite looking way worse than the original 90s Mortal Kombat movie, its direct sequel, Mortal Kombat Annihilation, cost more to make despite looking like it was way cheaper. It was because they had a director who didn't know what the heck he was doing and didn't know how to allocate everything properly. Money got spent in the wrong ways, in foolish ways, in ways that were just bad ideas. So more money resulting in a worse product. But I can look at that as bad as something like Mortal Kombat Annihilation is, and I can figure out where the money went. I do not understand how this possibly could have cost $200 million. Like, I checked everybody's salary to cover the return of Joaquin Phoenix and the return of Todd Phillips, and to bring in Lady Gaga cost them a little over $50 million. Now, that's pretty hefty for your primary cast. I'm not going to lie. But it's a $200 million movie, so that's still $150 million left over for everything else. And it doesn't look like a $150 million movie. It looks cheaper than the last one did. Like, there are very few locations in this. There is basically 2 different wards of a psychiatric facility. There's the holding cell. There's the courthouse. So there's the courtroom inside, and then there's the exterior of the courtroom, and that's basically it for major sets. There's like a couple of other things that happen, but like I don't understand how this costs this much. And you could say to me, musicals are expensive. Yes, normally they are, but you know what's normally expensive about musicals? Either having to pay people to come up with original songs, license existing songs, and all the choreography and the really fancy stuff that you do. Almost none of that is present here. There's very little choreography. It only involves Harley and Joker. There isn't a whole cast of dancers doing backup. Half the songs are public domain. There is literally only one shot in this entire movie where I go, that looks like an expensive shot. But it's not a $150 million shot. For the record, that's towards the end of the movie. I'm just going to spoil parts of this. So, like, if you cared, you would have seen the damn thing already. Toward the end of the movie, after the courthouse got blown up and Joker gets stuck in that car and they drive away with him, and he like gets this panic moment as these guys like clearly idolize him. He's like, I don't want this. And he runs out and he runs down the street, and there's a pretty long continuous shot. That looks like an expensive shot, mostly because it is period set, because they would have had to have blocked off a fair amount of road in a major city somewhere that either was or could double as New York, get a bunch of period appropriate cars and junk up the sidewalk and everything else to make it look appropriately grimy 70s looking. That kind of shot is expensive, but that's literally the only shot in the entire movie that actually looks expensive. And I've mentioned the music already, mainly just to mention that it was mostly public domain, but like, why is this a musical? Like, Todd Phillips has never made a musical before, and you can tell. Holy crap. This is actually the second movie I've seen in a little over a week where I can so tell that the person who made it has never made a musical before and doesn't understand them. The other one, for the record, being Amelia Perez. I'll have a review up for that in the main channel at the end of this week. But like, it's so obvious. And again, for the record, yes, musicals are expensive, but Wicked, the entire thing, cost $150 million. West Side Story cost $100 million, and that had Spielberg. How did this cost $200 million? It makes no sense. I seriously want a forensic accountant to go through this because it feels like somebody skimmed money off the top. There's got to be fuzzy accounting going on here. Somebody pocketed it because it makes no sense. It makes no sense. The plot, here's the thing. First half hour wasn't that bad. I was like, slow burn introduction to sort of where Arthur is as a character, giving us a sense of the facility that he's in, giving us actually kind of an interesting balance with the guards who seem to treat him okay-ish until they feel like he's getting too cozy, and then they rough him up. There's stuff that happens on the tail end and there's implied stuff that happens with him. I didn't need that, but initially just sort of setting it up. Yeah, it's doing it pretty well. It's doing it at a pace that works. But then the thing is, once he runs into Harley, or just Lee in this. Eh, Um, After that point, almost nothing happens. That's also the point at which the singing is introduced. Go figure. And like the singing isn't good. Like they have Lady Gaga, it sounds like they are intentionally trying to get her to sing like she's not a trained singer, like without the confidence that she clearly has in singing. And she is doing that well enough, but you can tell it's a performance. You can tell she can actually sing, whereas Joaquin Phoenix can't. Like, I'm not saying he's the worst singer I've ever heard in a musical. Russell Crowe and Les Mis probably still takes that one. But it's not, he's not good, especially not, having him sing alongside her. And pretty much every musical number is just the two of them. And when I say that it's really obvious that Todd Phillips doesn't know anything about musicals and has never made one before, the points at which you have them start singing don't make sense as points to start to have musical numbers, and they don't serve any of the functions of a musical number. Rule of thumb, and let's set aside musicals where basically the entire thing is sung from start to finish. So that's your Rents, that's your Les Miserables. I don't know why I tried to do it with the accent. But Phantom of the Opera, stuff like that. Stuff where almost everything is sung and actual normal dialogue is very, very minorly used, if at all. Set those aside because those kind of function on slightly different rules. But when you have something where it's mostly standard interactions, but also sometimes songs, the main purposes of those songs are usually one of two things. Not exclusively one of two things, but usually one of two things. One, to condense time, because the hyper real nature and the heightening of reality nature of having characters burst into song allow them to also say stuff that doesn't work as dialogue. You can have them actually just sing about who they are, their intents, their motivations, their background, in a way that if you tried to communicate in dialogue, you would have to stretch out over multiple scenes. Otherwise, it's just an exposition dump. When you sing an exposition dump, especially if the music's actually good, that absolutely works, and suddenly you have communicated a whole ton about a character real quickly. That's part of the reason why in a lot of musicals, when a major character first gets introduced, they get introduced either with a song or go into a song fairly shortly after their introduction, because it's a crash course in who they are. So that's one of the reasons, to sort of condense time and get a lot of information quickly. And also potentially to move forward a certain plot point pretty quickly. That's part of the purpose of doing often love songs, because it's hard to sell romance between two characters, especially if you're not going to take a ton of time to really build that chemistry. But if they have good singing chemistry, you can sell the idea of the two of them together so much faster. So that's one reason. The other major reason is just that it is a climactic moment. Sort of the classic thing is the point at which characters start singing is the point at which they are feeling something so strongly, whatever it is, that normal words become insufficient and they burst into song. Neither of those are in play here at all. Like, as I said, these are all pre-existing songs, I think. I don't think there's a single one of these that was written in advance. And at least half of them, if not most of them, are in the public domain. So these are just songs they stuck in. And most of it is shown to be in Joker's head. And so just randomly, okay, now he has a musical number in his head. It's not even like a Chicago thing where it's like he has a weird filtered perception and he's perceiving it as singing, which is what Chicago did fairly successfully, I'd say. It doesn't even really do that either. It kind of does it for one of the numbers, but like not consistently. Again, just showing a complete lack of understanding how you construct a musical. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess, and so little happens in this. Because as I said, first half hour was solid because I was like, okay, we're getting to a slow build and we're introducing everybody. But then once everybody's introduced, it maintains that exact same incredibly slow pace and goes almost nowhere. like, it turns into a courtroom drama for a bit, except it's not structured like you would structure a courtroom drama, but the courtroom stuff eats up way too much time to not consider it at least partially a courtroom drama. And it's the relationship between him and Lee is this weird sporadic thing that never really pulls together. I mean, like, it pulls together insofar as, yes, he is the kind of loser who doesn't understand women, who is easily manipulated by her. That part I get. But in terms of actually trying to get anything out of their scenes, no, there's really nothing there. There's just so much nothing that happens in this movie. It is shockingly long for how little happens. None of the performances are bad. I mean, that was true of the last one too. Acting is solid across the board. Everybody put the work in. Joaquin still, he seems a little bit less sure of why he's here, but he's still putting the work in as best as he can. Oh man. This really does feel like a $200 million cry of frustration that should have been just several therapy sessions for Todd Phillips. Like this, wow, man. Joker, Folie, Deux. Probably butchered that pronunciation too. Whatever. Did you see this thing? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills, enables me to do this as my living, even if you can't help me out that way. Like, share, subscribe. Don't worry too much about it, though. Good God. We take a relaxed attitude around here, so you can just come on back. Next time you need a break. I need one after this. And now to thank my highest supporting patrons. Robin Moore, Goddess Elida, Zubin Lotfulla, Welsh Wrestling Geeks, Alistair McPherson, Oliver B., Melissa Pedersen, Movie Turtle, Ulrich Bogdan, Loki Eris, Melinda Walters, Auntie Kate 808, Becky Sparks, Fernabi Likes the Poodle, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperl, Dave Hall, White Bearish, Rosalind Bennett, Adam R.D.L. Taylor, Pal Barabajoggle, Mira G, and Sir Didymus is my favorite. If you'd like me to... I read the names fine, then screwed it up. If you would like to hear me try and say your name while these guys chitter in my ears, check out the rewards on my Patreon. Yeah, you're not distracting at all.